the Dana White comments saying that, yeah, she may eventually, she don't want to fight in the UFC anymore. She wants to go somewhere else for easier fights. Look, outside of Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for her in the UFC. Like Holly Holm may be the next hardest fight. Who just beat Holly Holm? There was a girl that just beat Holly Holm. Yeah. That girl, I mean, maybe another hard fight. You know, like there's no hard fights. There's truly no hard fights for her in the UFC
Nunes.
either. Who?
It was Nunes.
Oh, Amanda, no. Holly Holm just fought recently. She just lost.
Yeah, it was Nunes. That was July 6th.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So the Amanda Nunes fight just happened, and she lost to her. And yeah, I mean, like outside of Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for Cris Cyborg. Just like for Amanda Nunes, there's no other hard fights for her outside of Cris Cyborg. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this. I think that every good fighter needs a nemesis. DC has John Jones. I had Gilbert Melendez. You know, guys have certain guys, or girls have certain girls that just play their nemesis. And if you don't capitalize on fighting those people as many times as you possibly can, then you're missing the boat, man. You're missing your opportunity to create the Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier feel of all of this. Like, you're missing that, you know, and that's the hardest part. That's like, I think in this situation that with Cris Cyborg, she needs to step up, either sign that contract or bounce to another organization. And I think she's got a very willing and able opponent in Julia Budd over in Bellator. As far as PFL, I don't think there's a girl over there in that organization who's going to touch her. You know, there's not a girl over there that I think could even bother her or touch her or like it's going to give her a hard time. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I wouldn't even, now on top of that, but here's the thing. The fact that I said that, it just opens the door for the fact that she has the opportunity to win $1 million pretty easily every time she fights in that tournament. And how old is she? 30, how old's Cris Cyborg? 36, 37? 34. Okay, so she's 34 years old. And she has the opportunity to win $1 million basically every year until she turns 37, 38 years old. None of those girls in that promotion are going to beat her. They won't even sniff a W against her. So I don't know any of those girls are going to be able to beat her. And so she could go to PFL and sure, fight easier fights and make $1 million. And I'm not going to knock her for that because in 3 years, she'll be worth $3 or $4 million. And everyone's going to be sitting back going, yeah, we don't care about her anymore. Who cares? But she's sitting at home in her probably like $2 million house going, yeah, I don't care what you guys think. And she's laughing all the way to the bank. And I'll actually clap my hands and, you know, and give her a lot of credit for doing what she did because it's hard to walk away. I got to tell you, I speak from experience. It's hard to walk away from the promotion that everyone considers to be the best promotion in the world, which is the UFC. And it's hard. It's you stake claims on everything that Dana White says, and not just the media, but then the fans and everyone. Like they all see it, especially now that it's on ESPN. They see all the comments that are made by Dana at the sport level. Whereas before the comments were made and like randomly they would get put on ESPN because ESPN didn't give a shit about UFC until they got onto ESPN. You know, none of the guys ever talked about it. None of the sports shows ever talked about it. They didn't really give a crap. It was like Connor and GSP and Ronda, and that was it. The three people, outside of those three people, they didn't give a crap. Now they're with the ESPN. They're now pushing it and promoting it and doing all these things, which I think is amazing. I think it's great. I think it's a good step in the right direction to further legitimize the sport of MMA. But my overall comment is, like, my overall analysis of this thing is that people with Cyborg, I think she needs to go where the money is. She needs to go wherever they will pay her the most, and wherever the least amount of damage is to her body. At 34 years old, she need she needs to make as much money as she possibly can. Let's be real. Let's be 100% realistic about this whole scenario. Women's MMA does not make anywhere near the men's MMA. Now, sure, Ronda made a ton of money. Miesha Tate made good money because she became champion. Holly Holm's probably making some good money. But the rest of these girls are not making anything. Okay? And Cyborg, I don't think, sure, she's making probably decent money, but she's not making a killing, you guys. Like, you don't see her probably buying a home in Silicon Valley like where I live. She's probably having a hard time buying a home there or anywhere in Orange County, Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach. She's probably not able to really buy a home there either. You know, so women's MMA, sure, it's hit that next echelon of the best fighters. I truly believe like this, the women's MMA right now I feel like is in that Frank Shamrock kind of era, where you have like Amanda Nunes, who's pretty well-rounded, got heavy hands. Like Frank was like that one that took it kind of to the next level of, he wasn't really great on the feet, but he had great cardio. He had good, decent stand-up, had good jiu-jitsu, good submissions, good submission defense. A guy who could push the pace. He made fights entertaining because he was like that next level of guys that just wasn't one-dimensional, and found ways to beat guys like Tito Ortiz and Jeremy Horn and, you know, and so on. I feel like that's kind of where women's MMA is right now. You know, the one-dimensional fighters are no longer existent. You have women that are now across the board very well-rounded, very good. That are just finally getting into their own of like who they are and what they can contribute to the sport. Now, don't get me wrong. Like everyone that came before them, they just paved the way. No different than like Royce Gracie, Marco Huas, good kicks, good jiu-jitsu guy, you know, Maurice Smith. You know, you have all these guys that came up before that, you know, Renzo Gracie. Like you can't go through the sport without mentioning these people. But you can also do the same thing for women's MMA. I can't go through women's MMA without mentioning, of course, first and foremost, Gina Carano, who paved the way for everything, you know, and now making her way into the movie industry. And that was all done because of Scott Coker. And you have Cris Cyborg and that whole thing with her beating Gina Carano and moving on to the next chapter and moving into the UFC and everything else that came along. But you have Miesha Tate, Marlos Kunin. You've got the top girls, Sarah Kaufman. All of these girls, Julia Butt, they all kind of paved the way. Alexis Davis, they're the girls that paved the way for these females to be on this pedestal and get into the limelight. And I feel like it all rotates back to Scott Coker, who kind of gave them a platform to fight at the highest level on Showtime TV, on CBS, on things like that. And let's not all forget that Dana White said women will never fight in the UFC, and then shortly after they bought Strikeforce, and you had the rising star of, you know, Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate growing even further beyond that. So my whole thing is Dana's doing what Dana does, not just Dana, but Dana's doing what almost every promoter does, and they are laying the groundwork previously and foremost in the beginning to let everybody know that the fighter is leaving because there's easier stuff out there to have. And if she wanted to really prove that she was a real fighter, that she would stay with the organization. Now, we all know that's a bunch of bullshit because there's no other person that I've ever met probably in my whole life that is more of a fighter than Cris Cyborg. And I'm going to be very upfront and very honest. I've never really been a huge fan of Cris Cyborg. I like her as a person. I've met her, talked to her, trained with her, done commercials with her. She is absolutely a doll and an amazing person. Like, outside of her fucking nastiness to fuck chicks up, she is really a great, great person. If you talk to her, she's extremely nice. She's extremely genuine. She's an absolute great person to be around. And so when Dana says like, oh yeah, she's trying to, you know, but she doesn't want to be in the UFC anymore, she wants to leave other places to fight easier fights, you guys have to take that with a grain of salt. He's doing what every promoter does. I'm not knocking him. I'm simply saying he's making sure that everyone understands that when she leaves, that it's because she wanted easier fights. But I'm sorry, but she's already smashed pretty much everyone in that whole organization outside of Amanda Nunes.